Before the NFL would come to Seattle, it needed a building large enough to house it. Construction on the Kingdome started in 1972, and in '74, the league granted the franchise to a group of Seattle businessmen, with the Nordstrom family as the majority stockholders. Next, they had to pick a name. A contest was held that received over 20,000 entries, with over 1,700 different suggestions. Narrowed down to 7, they were the Cascades, Evergreens, Mariners, Olympics, Pioneers, Sockeyes, and the Seahawks. Armed with only a name, but no coach or players, the team sold 24,000 tickets the first day, and a short time later, all 59,000 were gone. Next came the coach. Management wanted someone from a winning organization who would have the patience to handle a young team. One name kept coming up: Jack Patera. Finally, it was time to build the team. The second overall pick is the man who's had 3 acts with the Seahawks: player, analyst, and since 2004, the voice of the Seahawks, Steve Raible.
Leo Williams is going to take it in for a touchdown! Seahawks!
Who's also celebrating 50 seasons in Seattle. It was a start to remember.
There was nothing to gauge it by. There was nobody to talk to say, how is training camp going to go? What's the season going to be like? I had no idea what the schedule was. I mean, we didn't know anything about anything.
The first pick in team history was Notre Dame defensive tackle Steve Niehaus. Other draftees that first year included linebacker Sammy Green, running back Sherman Smith, and the man who would become the backbone of the defense, Mike Curtis. The roster also included a cast-off from the Cowboys, quarterback Jim Zorn.
At the start, it was going to be pretty exciting because we've got to develop our own traditions. There was no legend of anything there, so we got to create some of these things.
The battle for starting job under center lasted all of training camp, a time that was particularly interesting under Patera.
Big guy, loud, tough. Most people thought he didn't smile very much, but he did. Didn't allow water on the football field during practice.
It'd be 105 degrees or 100 degrees, and I remember Mike Curtis was a linebacker that we had gotten in the expansion draft from, at that time, the Baltimore Colts. And he called up the league office to see if we had to practice because it was so hot and we didn't have water. And they just sort of said, yes, you do. There is no rule there, you know.
Once the season started, the Hawks gave up some lopsided scores, but they also scared some teams to death with their passing game. On one side, Zorn had veteran receiver Sam McCullum to work with. On the other, a guy who arrived via a last-second trade by the name of Steve Largent, who amazed defenders with his ability to get open and catch the ball.
Everybody talks about great hands, yeah. Run great routes, yes. One of the hardest working, most talented, most humble, most self-directed people I've ever known.
We worked. We spent time before the practices, we spent time after practices, just trying to hone up all the nuances of running a pass route and throwing the football.
He just caught everything that he could touch, and probably caught a lot of balls that he shouldn't have caught, you know.
Still, the Seahawks were 0-5 when they arrived in Tampa for what was called the Expansion Bowl. Seattle had its way with the Bucs in the first half, running and passing at will. Tampa Bay made a comeback of sorts, and in the end, it came down to a last-second field goal attempt. Mike Curtis was there when he was needed. The Hawks had their first victory and were ready for another. That chance came a few weeks later in the Kingdome, when Seattle caught the Falcons by surprise. The Seahawks' high-powered offense proved too much for Atlanta. It was a decisive victory and the last of the season.
Jack really did a great job of elevating the Seahawks in year one to a level that hadn't been seen by any franchises that were just coming into the league.
The Seahawks finished the inaugural campaign at 2-12. It didn't matter to the fans, who rocked the Dome.
It was a great place to play. Now, I guess if you were up in the stands and you had to use one of the too few restrooms that were in the Kingdome, then it might have been a little tough on you. But it was a great home field advantage for us.
We used to just park out in the parking lot with the fans and walk in with the fans. Drove to the game every home game. Steve and I would get out. We had a little parking spot, and the fans would go, "Hey, have a great game." Well, "Hey, thank you." You know, we'd walk in and get our stuff on and go play.
The fans appreciated what we were doing and trying to put a marker down for having an NFL team in the Northwest. And I can't say enough about the appreciation that I have for the great fans in Northwest.
The Seahawks improved in 1977, going 5-9, then 9-7 in 1978. Jim Zorn threw for over 3,000 yards, but Seattle fell just short of the playoffs. Jack Patera named the NFL Coach of the Year.
See, I think a successful coach has imagination. I mean, you have to have imagination.
Another 9-7 campaign in '79, a season that featured one of the most famous plays in Seahawks history.
Field goal, team. Field goal.
It began as a 55-yard field goal attempt by Efren Herrera, with Jim Zorn holding.
They had nobody in the middle. So we said, well, why not set Efren up the middle? Because there's no one there. And Jim just stood up and threw him the ball.
And I just hit Efren, and he was wide open. You know, I was just hoping he'd catch it. I didn't throw it hard.
Herrera got the first down, and 3 plays later, Dan Dornick put the Seahawks up for good. Seattle won 5 of 6 to end the season. Encouraging, yes, but again, no playoffs.
Very annoying. You don't realize how close you are until you see the playoffs come about. You care so much about that. It kind of haunts you when you think about it every once in a while. It really does.
In 1980, an act of God covered the state of Washington in ash, and Cheney was no exception. The Hawks training camp site was cleaned up enough to hold camp, but Mount St. Helens eruption was a harbinger of what was to come. The Seahawks went backwards, finishing 4-12, losing every game at the Kingdome. The silver lining? Drafting defensive tackle Jacob Green.
The first meeting with Jack, he said, "Jacob, they said we needed a pass rusher, and so you're the guy, and that's what we needed to win." Coming to Seattle was quite the experience.
The 80s started slow, and it brought about a new era of Seahawks football with the arrival of Ground Chuck.
We will demand and expect the very, very best that all our football players have. We want to play Seahawk football. We want to play with a lot of pride, a lot of commitment. And that, I think, we will have.
I really enjoyed myself. And I'm sorry we didn't win more.
So were Seahawks fans, who were getting frustrated going into season number 8. Chuck Knox had won with the Rams and turned around the Bills. Now, Seahawks GM Mike McCormick brought Knox back to the West Coast to see if he could mold the Hawks into a playoff team.
Been able, with commitment from the players, commitment on the part of the coaching staff that we've had, that we've been successful in turning a couple programs around. And we expect to turn this program around. And we didn't come all the way out here not to get this job done.
He was a really no-nonsense guy. Don't tell me how rough the water is, just bring in the boat. But that was just one of many that he had, Knoxisms.
He had a game plan, and he had a system that he was married to that was successful in the NFL everywhere he tried it. And we also were successful too from day one when Chuck came into Seattle.
That plan was called Ground Chuck for its emphasis on the rushing attack. With that in mind, the Seahawks drafted Penn State running back Kurt Warner in the first round of the 1983 draft. It immediately paid off. The Seahawks won the first game under Knox, Warner running for 128 yards against the Jets.
Maker, and look at that cut.
He liked to run the football, and I like to run the football. And his advice was, hey, number one, the ball ain't heavy. That was the first thing that he had mentioned. Run to daylight and run where they ain't. So those were the 3 things that he told me to do. Other than that, he left me alone.
Knox also made a mid-season change at quarterback, replacing longtime QB Jim Zorn with Dave Craig.
And I always felt like Chuck didn't like the idea of the QB bolting and scrambling. If I felt pressure, I was gone. And that, I think, made him a little nervous because you can't predict that.
You know, it was tough initially because Dave was there and Jim was there. And Jim was my guy, and always was and has been. And Dave was willing to put in the same kind of work that I was putting in, and it paid off.
Everybody was trying to take my job, just like when Jim had his. And like Gail Gilbert is the one guy I keep bringing up. We played basketball, we shot pool, we competed all the time. So I was always competing in practice, just as hard as if it was a game.
Craig went 5-3 in 8 starts, leading the Seahawks to their first postseason. He threw for 3 touchdowns, and Warner ran for 99 yards in Seattle's 31-7 AFC wildcard win over Denver at the Kingdome.
Like if you're standing on the sideline, you had to yell to talk to somebody. And so if you're in the huddle, guys could just tell by your mouth what you were saying. They can understand the word, but it's so exciting, and that you got to keep your composure. For our defense, it was awesome. They were loud. The offense couldn't call their signals as well, so it was great for our defense. But the excitement level, you got to imagine the first time ever into the playoffs, and we win the darn game.
Next up, the Dolphins at the Orange Bowl. The Hawks drove 66 yards in 5 plays for a 27-20 win and a trip to the AFC title game. Warner ran for 113 yards, including the game-winning touchdown.
Obviously, it was the upset of the century on our part because no one was expecting us to win that game. So sometimes it's favorable to be the underdog, and that's what we were.
I can't tell you how excited we were because you go in the locker room, Dave Brown, God bless Dave Brown, consummate pro, what a great guy. He gets up there and presents the game ball to Chuck Knox. But at the same time, Elmer Nordstrom was in there. Old man Elmer, John's dad. And he was so cool, so happy. Had it not been for the Nordstroms and all the other people that helped get the Seahawks, so I could see in his face, even as young as I was, how much it meant to him.
Hip, hip, hooray! Hip, hip, hooray! After beating the Raiders twice during the season, a third time was not likely. The Raiders won the AFC title 30-14. The '84 season started with a blow. Pro Bowler Kurt Warner tore his ACL in the season opener.
You lose Kurt Warner in the very first ball game.
I would have loved to have been out there to get out there and mix it up, especially during that time frame.
So, Ground Chuck evolved into Air Knox, and Craig responded, throwing for 3,600 yards and 32 touchdowns.
That was like, here I go to the Pro Bowl in Hawaii, and I'm like, there's Dan Marino. He asked me for Copenhagen and stuff like that. You know, I'm like, what am I doing out here? Look at all these guys, Duper, Clayton, John Hanna, you know, Dwight Stevenson. I'm like, oh my gosh. You know, that was a really cool thing coming from DC Everest, from the farm country of Wisconsin to Milton College, and now I'm in Hawaii playing in the Pro Bowl. You're like, you got to be kidding me. You know, I just flew out a plane a few times, you know.
The Hawks went 12-4, advancing to the AFC divisional game before losing to Miami. Along the way in 1984, the defense set an NFL record by returning 4 interceptions for touchdowns against the Chiefs, 2 by Dave Brown. Kenny Easley set a Seahawks record with 3 picks in one game against the Chargers on Monday Night Football. Jacob Green had a 4-sack game against the Giants, 4 of his 115.5 career sacks.
Sacks for a defensive lineman, sacks was like getting a touchdown. So Kenny Easley, who was probably the toughest guy I ever met, mentally and physically, and Manu Tuiasosopo, and we had Dave Brown, we had Jeff Bryan and Joe Nash. I remember we were the top 2 defenses in the league.
Steve Largent would set a then NFL record with a catch in 128 straight games, a streak that would stretch to 177. And for one famous moment, a big hitting defender. After being concussed by Denver's Mike Harden early in the season, Largent saw the opportunity for payback, laying out Harden and recovering the fumble.
We played him in the Kingdome, and Mike had intercepted a pass, and I was running at an angle. He was coming this way. He didn't see me. He was looking at rest of our offense. He didn't see me, and I cold-cocked him.
Oh, and Largent
and recovered the fumble, and we won the game, and everything was peachy.
The 80s also brought the Boz, the brash, mullet-wearing linebacker from Oklahoma. A media sensation even back then, Brian Bosworth could play. 4 sacks in his first season.
People loved him, and the Boz with the haircut. So he did what they do now with the media, is make stuff happen.
But he became known more for his outspoken personality, which manifested in his ill-fated remark to contain Raiders running back Bo Jackson. Bo knew Boz and promptly ran him over. Bosworth was done after 2 seasons.
He came in selling Boz hater t-shirts. He was selling them because he knew his agent knew they could make money at it. It was quite a time, short period of time. He met Bo Jackson, and that was about that.
The Hawks made 4 playoff appearances in the 80s. They also retired jersey number 12 in honor of the fans. The last man to wear 12, quarterback Sam Adkins. But the 80s also brought the Bearings.
Fumble.
Ownership that would hamper the franchise into the 90s. 1990 would be Seattle's last winning season for the next 8 years. With Dave Craig's tenure coming to an end, the team drafted its next quarterback, just not the one Chuck Knox wanted.
Bearings wanted to be involved in it all the time. And Bearings went to Chuck and said, hey, we're going to draft here today. We're going to draft Dan McGuire, quarterback. And Chuck says, well, wait a minute, hang on here. If you really want to draft a quarterback, there's a kid named Favre who's pretty good. Maybe we should look at that. No, we've seen this guy. We know his agent, and we've already kind of struck a deal. So this is the guy we're going to draft. And so Chuck goes back into the draft, talking to his coaches, and says, get ready to coach your asses off, because if not, we're going to get fired at the end of this season, because they're going to draft this quarterback. And sure enough, that came to be.
To their credit, the Hawks also drafted a defensive end who would make his mark in Seattle, Cortez Kennedy.
He could destroy, take over a game single-handedly by himself.
In '92, Tez had 14 of his 58 career sacks and was Defensive Player of the Year on a team that finished 2-14.
Cortez is a once-in-a-lifetime type of talent and a once-in-a-lifetime personality, because his personality is gigantic. He was like a big teddy bear. Then to get on the field, it was a monster. I can remember in practice going like, hey man, can you just step out of the drill? Because we're not even gonna, we're already bad. We can't even tell if we can do anything because you're blowing everything up. We don't know if it works or not,
But '92 was a year of loss. Chuck Knox had resigned, and Super Bowl winning coach Tom Flores took over. Flores, though, could never replicate the success he had with the Raiders.
And he was a terrific coach, and followed John Madden down there. But remember, Al Davis was the guy pulling all the strings. And he came to Seattle where there was much less of that stability upstairs.
Then, late in the season, the voice of the Seahawks was silenced. Pete Gross had been there for all 17 years. And on November 30th was inducted into the Ring of Honor. 2 days later, Gross passed away of cancer.
I really miss Pete. He was just a really great friend and a great guy, and you couldn't ask for anybody better.
Like the My Oh My of Dave Niehaus, fans always remembered Pete's touchdown call.
He throws in the end zone. Touchdown Seahawks!
Steve Rabel kept the call alive after sharing the booth with Gross for 11 seasons.
As much as I love doing the games with him, being with him on a Saturday in Boston before a Seahawks game was even more fun. Because he'd say, let's rent a car and go out to the Cape. Or let's, go out to see the Statue of Liberty if we're in New York. He just loved that stuff. Everything was an education. I learned every time I was with him.
From the Kingdome in Seattle, it's the Seattle Seahawks and the Los Angeles Raiders.
As the 90s went by, the Seahawks ran through quarterbacks. Dan McGuire, Jeff Kemp, Rick Meyer, John Freese, Stan Gelbaugh. None found true success, but Seattle could run. Chris Warren gained over 1,000 yards in 4 straight seasons. By the end of his tenure, Warren held the Seahawks' career rushing record.
Touchdown, Chris Warren!
Oh, Chris Warren was the man. We weren't getting a whole lot done in the passing game, but it's like, you know what? We have a really good running back, so let's just make that thing work. And so it was really cool to see Chris be able to kind of spread his wings and really realize his talent and his ability with our team.
As Warren was running wild, the Seahawks sent their first player to Canton.
Pro Football Hall of Famer from Seattle, Steve Largent.
In 1995, Steve Largent was inducted into the Hall of Fame.
It's like the cherry on top of your ice cream that says, hey, you did it the right way. And so I've always appreciated that too.
Thank you.
So Tom Flores replaced Chuck Knox, and Dennis Erickson took over for Flores 3 years later. It was during that time the end almost came for the Hawks.
I got a call from one of the coaches that morning, and they said, hey, Rabes, you might want to come by here because there are moving vans in the parking lot, and we're packing up everything and we're moving to California right now.
Displeased with the aging Kingdome and lack of progress on a new stadium, Ken Behring attempted to move the team to Los Angeles in 1996.
The NFL franchise we purchased in 1988 is leaving Seattle.
And of course that was ill-fated. They were back in 2 weeks or 3 weeks, and it was never the same after that.
The plan was halted when the NFL threatened to fine Behring $500,000 a day until he returned the team to Seattle. 2 months later, Behring and Paul Allen entered an option for Allen to buy the team, which is completed in the summer of '97.
Let me say that I am thrilled and honored to be part of maintaining the proud tradition of professional football in Seattle.
The darkest era of Seahawks football is finally over. That same year, the drafting of a franchise cornerstone, future Hall of Famer Walter Jones.
I thought it was going to be Oakland. I'm like, okay, a rural guy from Alabama, get a chance to go to Cali. I didn't know nothing about the state of Washington. But when I got drafted here, I thought it was a great opportunity for me to just come here and play football. Didn't have to worry about tickets. My family wasn't flying here. I think my mom flew up here since I've been up here probably, twice since I've been up here. So she don't like flying. So for me personally, I thought it was a great opportunity for me to come here.
So as the decade winds down, there's a new owner, the promise of a new stadium, and then the arrival of the big show.
I cannot tell you the excitement. I'm a little nervous, but the excitement that's running through my veins at this particular point. As a coach, you cannot ask for any more than I've been given here. And so now it's up to us. We'll roll up our sleeves as soon as possible.
Mike Holmgren got right after it.
You have very high goals set for the organization, and you think you can fix anything. That's your attitude. I don't care what the problem is, we're going to deal with it and fix it, and hopefully get the ultimate goal is the Super Bowl. And I said, why not here?
When Mike came in his first day, I remember he saying that, if you listen to me, if you do what I say, I promise you guys I'll get y'all to a Super Bowl. And I think he came in and changed the standard.
In his first season, the Seahawks broke a 10-year playoff drought, going 9-7 to win the AFC West. The season would end with a loss to Dan Marino and the Dolphins, the final game in the Kingdome. The 2000s began with 2 seasons at Husky Stadium, while Seahawks Stadium was being built. The Hawks would again start a playoff drought, but the foundation was being solidified. Robbie Tobeck joined Walter Jones and Chris Gray on the offensive line, which eventually added Steve Hutchinson.
Being a part of that group, a part of the group that's thought of as one of the top offensive lines in history, it's a really cool thing, and it's a real badge of honor because you work your butt off to get to a certain level, and to have other people say that, yeah, you got to that level. That's a really neat thing.
To run behind that line, Seattle drafted Sean Alexander. He played sparingly in the first season before becoming one of the top running backs of the decade.
He's across midfield, he's on the run, inside the 40.
I thought this is way farther away for them from Alabama than I thought. We flew, we stopped somewhere. I'm like, what is going on? Why would we stop to get somewhere? So I'd never been to Washington State, but I grew to love it. Like this is going to be where, this 22-year-old kid is going to go figure out life. And it just went well for me.
And Sean had a knack for getting in the end zone. Anytime we got inside the 15, Sean had a knack for getting in. And I think he had exceptional speed where I don't think people thought he was fast, but when he got through the hole, guys never did catch him.
The 5, touchdown Seahawks!
In 2001, Mike Holmgren traded for Matt Hasselbeck, who had backed up Brett Favre during Holmgren's time in Green Bay.
I was really excited that Mike Holmgren traded for me, because when I was in Green Bay, my rookie year, I'm not sure if he knew my first name. I remember someone ran into Brett Favre at practice. Mike stops practice, he calls up everybody, and he's like, hey, if anybody gets near Brett Favre again, I will fire you and your coach. It's not that I don't have faith in our backups, Doug Peterson, Rick Meyer, and Hasselbeck, but we are a 500 team without Brett Favre. That's what he said. And so at that moment, I felt like, well, he doesn't know my first name. So when he traded for me, I guess 3 years later, I was a little bit surprised.
Hasselbeck and Trent Dilfer would rotate as the starting quarterbacks until mid-2002. The Hawks won the final 3 games of the season, with Hasselbeck throwing for a franchise record 449 yards in an overtime win against the Chargers.
The next year in 2003, we were really good on third down. We were really good in red zone. I think you saw the makings, and I think we felt the makings of what we could be consistently.
2003, Seattle opens the season with a decisive victory over the Saints, the first season-opening win since 1986. It becomes the first 10-win season in 17 years, setting up a postseason showdown with the Packers that goes to overtime, where
we want the ball, we're going to score. I have no regrets about we want the ball, we're going to score. I actually am somewhat proud of it. I regret that I threw the interception that ended up losing us the game, but losing in 2003 on the last play of the game and then losing in 2004 in the last play of the game against the Rams, for me personally, propelled us to the year that we had in 2005.
2005, the season where it all comes together. After starting the campaign at 2-2, the Hawks run off a club record 11 straight wins.
You start putting games together and you just never want it to end. You can't wait to get in the building. You can't wait to get to work. You can't wait to get to next week. Everything is roses and it's good because you're winning.
They set another team record with 320 rushing yards as Sean Alexander scores 4 touchdowns against Houston on Sunday Night Football.
I just wanted to go rip that place up, and be like, hey, this is what we're doing out here. And my best games in my whole career were always on Sunday night and Monday night.
They beat the Cowboys on Josh Brown's 50-yard field goal as time expired. Alexander keeps on running, 173 yards, including an 88-yard touchdown against the Cardinals. Then, a 42-0 blowout of the Eagles on a snowy Monday night in December. The Hawks ended a 21-year playoff drought without a win by taking care of Washington in the divisional game. Matt Hasselbeck running for a touchdown and throwing for another. That set up the NFC title game against the Panthers and a special raising of the 12 flag.
The emotion of it really, got to me. I think, when the fans were going, thank you, Paul, and kind of got a chant going like that. And then they showed the video clip talking about going to Husky games with my dad. I got choked up. So it was a special moment. And then just to feel the sheer energy of the crowd right before the kickoff and what a fantastic game followed. I mean, it was just an incredible memory I'll always have.
Hasselbeck was 20 for 28 with 2 touchdowns. Alexander ran all over the field for 132 yards and a pair of scores. The defense held the Panthers to 14 points, sacking Jake Delhomme twice and intercepting 3 passes. A 34-14 win and Seattle's first trip to the Super Bowl.
The championship game is like one of my great memories that I have from my life. Us realizing that we won the game and kind of doing laps around what was then Quest Field, high-fiving the fans. That was awesome.
you're a Pro Bowl player or whatever, that's a dream come true, and that's a really cool thing. But none of it compares to just getting to that Super Bowl. The intensity on the field is unmatched with anything. Unmatched.
That Super Bowl, it's just different. And, and if you ever get a chance to go be in one, it's so special.
Super Bowl 40 in Detroit wasn't just a game, it was a statement. The Seahawks had arrived. And with their arrival came the hoopla and the hype, fueled by Media Day, which kicked off Super Bowl week in grand fashion. The Seahawks were up against a cornerstone franchise in the NFL, the Pittsburgh Steelers, whose fans made the 4.5-hour drive to Detroit and turned Ford Field into a virtual home field advantage for their Steelers. The Seahawks started fast, only to have Darrell Jackson's touchdown catch nullified when he got flagged for pass interference in the end zone. It was a questionable call at best, setting the tone for several more to follow, leaving Seattle coaches, players, and fans mystified. In the end, the Seahawks lost 21-10, but established a new standard for football in Seattle.
You end up losing a Super Bowl game that, if you talk to pretty much any of the coaches, certainly for the Seahawks, they said we were the better team. And it just didn't happen that day.
We land back here in Seattle, and we're driving up probably the 405, and just to see the amount of fans, the amount of 12s that came out, and we lost.
Seahawks!
There at the facility when we got back, that was incredible. I mean, that support was incredible. And we lost.
The Seahawks would win the division 2 more times before Mike Holmgren left after the 2008 season.
I loved my job. I wanted respect. I wanted to earn respect from the other coaches. That they would look at me across the field or when we'd shake hands at the beginning of the game and say, he's pretty good. This is going to be a tough one.
And following the forgotten 2009 campaign, everything changed once again with the stunning hire of a Trojan chief.
If you know anything at all about me, I can't pass up a competitive challenge. And you could challenge me right now, and I'll go right now. And I'm nuts for it. So what this next step presents is the challenge of a lifetime.
Today, there's new hope for the Seahawks and an opportunity again to dream about championships.
This is an extraordinary time. And I hope that you can sense the excitement that I feel about this opportunity. I know it's going to be hard. I know it's going to be difficult. And people from where I come from want to say, well, gosh, why would you do that when you win all the time in college football and here you're going into the meat grinder of the NFL? I'm ready.
I never heard a coach speak so much at the podium. He was all over the place. And I thought, this guy's going to be a hoot.
See what you got, Root. Come on, Root. Woo, woo.
And so, the Pete Carroll era was born. Carroll started by hiring John Schneider as his right-hand man. In their first draft, they started building a foundation. Russell Okung, Earl Thomas, Golden Tate, Walter Thurman, and Cam Chancellor. Seattle finished 7-9, but won the NFC West, setting up one of the most memorable moments in franchise history. The New Orleans Saints came to town for the wild card game. In his final Seahawks game in Seattle, Matt Hasselbeck threw for 272 yards and 4 touchdowns. But it was Marshawn Lynch who got the stadium shaking.
He's across the 40, midfield, 45, he's on the run, Lynch, 40, pushes the man, 35, look at him go. He's down to 20, 15, he could go, he is going to go. Touchdown, Seahawks.
And it was just one of the most remarkable things I'd ever seen.
I saw Marshawn breaking a tackle. In 4 minutes, I chase, but it was just an amazing moment. I think caused an earthquake, going nuts, celebrating with my teammates in the end zone. Kind of glanced up and I saw where my family was sitting and I kind of raised my arms like, can you believe this?
I couldn't hear myself in the headset.
My offensive line told me that, they would get me to the second level and, you got to take over from there. And, it was a power play. And they did exactly what they told me was going to do. And after I got to the second level, I think my instincts just took over. And Justin told me that one of the offensive linemen beat me to the end zone. So I guess it started and ended with them. So it was much respect and big ups to them.
it was that ultimate sign that the Seahawks have arrived under Pete Carroll.
The beast is alive and well!
In 2011, more pieces to the puzzle, drafting K.J. Wright, Richard Sherman, and signing undrafted free agent Doug Baldwin.
How in the world did he catch that ball?
You feel the culture, you feel the community, you feel the desire to win. And not just to win for the individual accolades, but to really win for your teammates and for a community.
And then came 2012, Bobby Wagner and Russell Wilson. Matt Flynn was all but penciled in as the starting quarterback, but Russ would not be denied.
You know, Pete gave me a chance to play and try to go after and go shine right away. You know, I think for me, I just believed in myself. I think you got to believe internally in yourself. And I think also too, you know, you have to pursue what you desire every day, daily. So I was just fortunate to be around a good group of guys.
The Hawks would go 11-5, winning the final 5 regular season games, starting with an overtime win in Chicago.
98 yards to go, 99 yards to go, went all the way down the field to go win the game. Took the lead, they tied it up, overtime to go win the game, and throw a touchdown to City Rice. So just those moments, you know, I think those build you up to be ultimately confident.
They would beat Washington in the wild card, but lose a backbreaker in Atlanta with just seconds left on the clock. A loss, but a turning point.
Walking off that field, I remember telling Coach Carroll, I said, we're going to win the Super Bowl next year. And he believed it, I believed it. I think several other guys believed it too, that we were capable of doing it. And sure enough, as the season went on, we just knew.
2013 was the 38th season of Seahawks football, and the one where it all came together. The team would have win streaks of 4 and 7 games, going 13-3 to win the NFC West. They took care of New Orleans in the divisional round, 2 Marshawn Lynch touchdowns, to set up a showdown with the 49ers in the NFC Championship. It was the first title game since the 2005 season. The Seahawks going ahead for good on Wilson's 35-yard touchdown strike to Jermaine Kearse.
Russ throws a really good seam ball. It's probably one of his best balls that he throws is a seam ball. And he just kind of put it right on the dot, and all I had to do was catch it.
The Seahawks defense pressured Colin Kaepernick. 2 sacks, 2 fumbles, and 2 interceptions. Cam Chancellor had 1 pick, Malcolm Smith the other, ending the game on the play known as the tip. Richard Sherman's play cementing the LOB's significance in the league's history.
The final play, take me through it.
Well, I hadn't got much action all game. I had a feeling they were going to try me. I saw the ball in the air, game.
We made a staple in the NFL. We're going to be always talked about. Nobody's ever going to forget us. I think that's what we all set out to do when we first started as a group. I know I wanted my individual accolades, and it was going that way until Sharon wanted to push me, Cam wanted to push me, Brandon Brown wanted to push me, Byron Maxwell wanted to push me, and we just formed this thing that everybody that watched football loved.
Super Bowl 48 in New Jersey against the Broncos. The Seahawks were given much more of a chance than in 2006. Media Day at Prudential Center was a lively affair. Even Regis had a good feeling.
Regis, Seahawks, what do you think of this team?
Okay, I think it's a good team. Yeah. I really do. Great defense, and I love the way Russell Wilson runs around.
Denver was a 2.5-point favorite. The battle set between the Seahawks' top defense and Peyton Manning's top offense. It took all of 12 seconds for Seattle to take control. Cliff Averill with the safety after the ball was snapped over Manning's head.
Just making him uncomfortable, making sure that we put pressure in his face nonstop, and we knew our guys on the back end would do their job as well.
It just felt like walking out there, it's like, man, we're going to be Super Bowl champions. And just we had caught so much momentum. Guys like Jermaine Kearse were making plays, Doug, made a sweet touchdown, catch and kind of dipped under the guy, got in there. Obviously, when Malcolm picked that ball off and took it back to the house, and what special moments. And I think the world doubted us that we could beat a team like that, and we didn't doubt at all. We believed.
If there was any doubt the Seahawks had the game in hand with a 22-0 halftime lead, the win was solidified when Percy Harvin ran the third quarter kickoff back 87 yards for a touchdown. The Hawks were Super Bowl champions with a 43-8 dismantling of the Broncos.
The fact that people were doubting us, I think, gave us a little bit more, to play for as well. But it was nothing like it. Nothing like it. Can't explain it. Can't describe it.
That's what made us special, is that we genuinely loved each other and cared about each other. And when you were on the field, you went the extra mile or the extra inch for that person next to you because you genuinely cared about them.
Put that freaking trophy up.
Hundreds of thousands of 12s attended the parade.
Hey, this is what we do. We bring everybody out.
A 2.5-mile route through downtown Seattle. Marshawn Lynch on the hood of the Duck, tossing Skittles into the crowd. The procession ending at Lumen Field with Paul Allen raising the Lombardi Trophy.
Being up on those rides and just seeing all the fans and the eye engagement waves and just the tears on people's faces. There's really never been anything like that big in Seattle.
They were just as good the next season, setting up an epic NFC championship against the Packers. It had everything. John Ryan throwing for a touchdown, onside kicks going the right way, and ultimately Jermaine Kearse doing it again.
Staring at adversity in the face for most of the game, and then being able to kind of overcome and end up making the game-winning touchdown to send our team to the Super Bowl.
The Hawks had the makings of a dynasty, returning for Super Bowl 49 against the Patriots. It certainly had its moments.
I'm here so I won't get fined.
Seattle driving late for the win when Jermaine Kearse made another of his circus catches.
Malcolm was able to get his hand on it a little bit, and I was just able to still kind of track it throughout the air. Kind of slowed down a little bit. Just another big play that's, obviously followed by what everybody knows. So
Lynch didn't get fined, and he didn't get the ball. Wilson's pass picked off to seal a super loss.
I understood why the call was made. Intellectually, I knew why. Until you're talking about Marshawn Lynch. The play call I didn't have as much problem with. The execution, obviously. As great as it felt the year before, that's how bad it felt the following year. And then, as we know, it sort of wasn't the same after that. And it never is. And that's unfortunate.
The Seahawks would make the playoffs in 4 of the next 5 seasons to end the decade, not yet having returned to the Super Bowl. The 2020s started with a worldwide pandemic. COVID caused the season to be played in empty stadiums. Russell Wilson set an NFL record for most touchdown passes in the first 3 games of the season with 14. Tyler Lockett set a single-season franchise record with 100 receptions, while DK Metcalf set the single-season franchise record with 1,303 yards receiving. The Seahawks won the NFC West, but lost to the Rams in the wild-card round. Then missed the postseason in 2021. And in March of 22, the changing of the guard. After 10 seasons, all-time leading tackler Bobby Wagner was released for the first time, an 8-time All-Pro player. Just 7 days later, Russell Wilson was traded to the Broncos.
I've been grateful for 10 amazing, life-changing years in Seattle. And I think that unfortunately when I got traded, everything got misconstrued and just a little bit disappointing in that part of it. That I think people thought I just wanted to get out of there. No, I love Seattle. I wanted to be there. But I think that for me, I'll forever be grateful and forever love Seattle and forever call it home. And I will forever be a champion there.
After missing the postseason in 23, Pete Carroll, the all-time winningest coach in Seahawks history, was removed as head coach. But what a ride it was.
It's always been a kind of the ribbon on the wall that we're trying to hit always. We just keep coming back to it, and making sure that we never left what we're all about, which was trying to be the best we could possibly be, always having fun, always being a good teammate. All of those things that make up our, kind of the substance of what this program has been. It's rewarded us so much. We've had so many obvious illustrations of guys wanting to stay or coming back or how they talk about us once they leave. It's a special place to be. And it's not just the fun, it's the depth and the sincerity and the competitiveness and the battling and the willing to break a meeting up and have a freaking shootout, right in the middle of a meeting because, two guys just butted heads or something in practice. There's a freedom about that. And the freedom and the free flowing of it, I think it's endearing in a sense, because you don't know what's going to happen, but you know what's going to happen. And so we just try to keep creating it, and hopefully we hit it. And most of the time we did, sometimes we didn't, but most of the time we had a great time. And that was part of this experience.
3, 1, 2, 3! Seahawks!
Now, as we move into the 50th season, Mike McDonald has the stewardship of the team, ready to bring it all together once more.
That's where 12-1 came from, was trying to create this overwhelming synergistic force of the 11 guys on the field, the 12s in the stands, the atmosphere in the city that's just kind of like this nightmare of a thing for teams to come play us. And so what does it mean? It means everything. I mean, it's what we're chasing. It's the vision behind our team. So teams are coming up in here for playoff games and NFC championships, and we're competing, to be world champions year in and year out. That's where we want to go.
Just freaking our style of football, guys. It's a team football freaking Seahawk win.
For 50 seasons, the Seahawks have delighted and excited, exasperated and frustrated, all while becoming a Super Bowl champion. It's left an indelible mark on the 12s and on those players who've entertained the Seahawks faithful.
The fans stand out to me because what we started with in the Kingdome, and the fans were behind the Hawks just 100%. You always felt like they knew next game was going to be the one, and they were loud and boisterous, and I think that has carried through.
I just kind of smile and nod to those people, and I think, wow, they still remember me. 50 years, they still remember me wearing my jersey, so it's kind of cool.
I tried to play as hard as I could. I think I did everything I could do to make my teammates better and to make me better, and being in the Ring of Honor, being part of the top 50, that does a lot for me, and that's just something that my daughters, my grandkids, my family, they look back and the Seahawks are a great organization.
Very honored. It's a privilege to have played for the Seattle Seahawks. It's a great organization, great people, and I couldn't have asked for a better situation than with the Seahawks.
Like Milton College guys, I don't think they know the stuff like there's a name up there. My name's in the Ring of Honor. I don't think they even know about the top 50. But when you go to Seattle, they treat you like, wow, you did something for us. At the same time, the 12s, the fans. I mean, I've gone to a lot of places. The Chiefs are pretty close, but there's nothing like the Seattle fans.
I love everything here, for me to be able to come here from a very rural town to come here and make Seattle my home. I think it was pretty amazing, and I love saying that I play for the Seattle Seahawks.
Be able to live a dream, to be able to be a part of Seattle Seahawks history is, I can't think of anything, other than family, kids and grandkids. I just can't think of anything in my life that's been as rewarding.
It's an honor. It's an honor to see someone wear your jersey or cheer for you or let you know, hey, I was at that game in the snow, here in Seattle against the Packers, and you guys came back in the second half, and I was right there when this happened or that happened. I feel like it's almost like they're a teammate, like we were there together, we grew up together here. I grew up as a player here, I grew up as a husband here, I grew up as a father here. This will always be a special place.
I knew that the fans were going to be loud, and I knew that they just hadn't won before, so I thought, I'm going to do everything I can to have them experience that. And that turnaround was awesome, and building a new stadium and changing our colors a little bit. Being a part of all that was just amazing.
I loved my job. I wanted respect. I wanted to earn respect from the other coaches. That they would look at me across the field or when we'd shake hands at the beginning of the game and say, he's pretty good. This is going to be a tough one.
I was fortunate enough to play with a group of guys that I can call my brothers now. A bunch of group of guys that I genuinely care for. They weren't just coworkers. They weren't just my teammates, we're always around each other, and we're rooting for each other even outside of football. So I would say I've come here and I've kind of created another family.
That's what made us special, is that we genuinely loved each other and cared about each other. And when you were on the field, you went the extra mile or the extra inch for that person next to you because you genuinely cared about them.
I went undrafted, and I had a lot of mountains to climb, and I was able to kind of, put my tools on my back and climb up the mountains, and I feel like I was able to kind of reach the summit. So, very proud of my career.
I was a young 22, 23-year-old kid, hoping and dreaming, and the Seattle will forever be a part of those goals and dreams and things I've been able to accomplish. And so, man, what a special place.
Generations now of Seahawks fans who I'll meet somebody one day and they say, yeah, my grandfather had season tickets to that first year and he took me to the game when I was 7. And I said, thanks for making me feel so old. But that's what this is all about. Wins and losses and Super Bowl championships, and they're great. But what the Seahawks have meant to this area, this city, this community over all those years, that's what makes me happiest.
Seahawks! Seahawks!